How's everyone doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 59. Tonight, my special guest is Tim Glowik from the amazing band Wolves. Super underrated in my mind. I think I saw them at least 8 to 10 times between 2002 and 2003. Just a great band. Super, super underrated. I feel like people should be talking about that band way more. They were amazing every time I saw them. The music is unbelievable. I just want to give a quick shout out to Frank Stapes for the Herjaza, amazing human being, and also Kathleen Stubelic from Circle Takes a Square, unbelievable. Tim, I'm grabbing you right now. Tim,
Hey, what's up?
not much. How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, good. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, pretty good.
Perfect,
Yeah,
perfect.
how am I? Everything good or?
Yep, perfect, perfect. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to do this, especially on a Sunday. I know people are kind of busy on Sundays, and it being Labor Day weekend as well. I want to say thank you again for taking time out.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Usually when I first start off talking, I usually ask, what got you into punk and hardcore first, and what were you listening to before you were listening to punk and hardcore as a kid or a young teenager?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a great question. So I think I got into punk and hardcore because I had a lot of friends who skated, and like I was kind of annoyed with baseball and basketball. I recently quit basketball. As much as I still love it, I still play it all the time. Like I didn't like my coach. I was kind of done with sports. Um, Turns out that wasn't true. I still play all the time. So I was like, okay, skateboarding. I'm going to pick this up again. All my friends skate. And it's like, well, what are you going to listen to? Of course, punk. Like, it was punk or indie. So that's just what we did. Um, and I had a lot of friends who put on shows when they were young. My friend Junior was like, dude was like 16 and he was putting on shows like in other states. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Like if a 16-year-old can do this just because he feels like doing it and it feels like running a distro, this is awesome. Um, for music before that, God, I think I had like 3 records my whole life before that. I didn't listen to music. I just didn't care. Like I was outside. So I think I had like the Beat Street album. I still have that whole album memorized. Like if it comes on, like word for word,
Yeah.
every song. I think I had a Michael Jackson album. It was probably Thriller. No, it was probably Off the Wall. And then maybe it was a Tina Turner album. But I really just like the one song. We Don't Need Another Year. Like, I just listen to that over and over. Still do.
It's funny because I started listening to disco when I was a kid too.
Yeah.
That's what first drew me in. Music was disco. I was like Casey and the Sunshine Band, Kool and the Gang,
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, Off the Wall.
Yeah.
It's, so it's funny because my mom was kind of like a hippie, and it wasn't that I was rebelling from her, but it was like I wanted to listen to something different than that kind of music. So the first thing I was disco, which is funny because you obviously were a disco fan when you were younger too.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. It's underrated as a genre. Like I think people can still take it and still use it. Like there should be more punk disco bands. That's like all that there should be right now.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
I agree, definitely. Getting into punk and hardcore, what bands kind of like were your favorites that kind of drew you in where you were like, okay, this is something that like I want to pick up a guitar or I want to go to these shows. Like what were the bands that kind of drew you in?
Yeah, so like the first ones that kind of hooked me because it was like a hard transition at first. Because I was just like, this is a lot of noise, like really underproduced, noisy, and I was just like trying to wrap my mind around it. So one that really got me as a transitionary band was Archers of Loaf. I don't know if you remember them. They were an indie band from the Carolinas.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so that like Icky Metal was a great album. And I was just like, wow, okay, I get it. Like I'm really enjoying the dissonance of this, but the melody of it. And then immediately after that was like Indian Summer and Moss Icon. Like those are big for me because I really enjoyed like the dynamics of the bands. And I know like those are, for both of those, they were like hyper dynamic, like so quiet, so loud. Like,
Yeah.
but that was it. Like I liked that. It felt like nature to me, you know, like where you're going through the woods. It's super quiet, and then all of a sudden you hit like a river, and it's super loud. And it just reminded me of that. It just felt natural to me. So,
Yeah. Now, did you grow up in Massachusetts, or were you born somewhere else? And where were you brought up?
so I grew up in West Newbury, Massachusetts. It's like a super small town. It's right in between Newburyport and Haverhill, but like no one we even know it exists. Our school was actually three towns in one to make a very small school. It was West Newbury, Groveland, and Merrimack. So I had all these friends like after elementary school. It was just like a whole new group of friends. So I befriended kids from all the other places, and then yeah, it just because of that, like everyone kind of got into punk because you have 10 kids from different towns all liking punk. That makes a lot of kids in a really small school. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Now, was Merrimack Valley Hardcore a big thing for you since you were in that?
So like Red Barn was like an every weekend thing, you know. You're like that's for like all of us. Like Red Barn was amazing.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't care who was playing, but you also knew Converge was going to play. You know, you knew Caven was going to play. So it's at least one band that you're like, I know this band, I like this band. It's going to be super fun. It may be a little violent at moments, depending on who shows up, but like it's going to be fun. So.
Yeah. Now, did you ever travel up to New Hampshire to see any shows up in New Hampshire when you were younger?
So mostly to see indie rock shows. So we'd go to like the Elvis Room, and then we'd like some Portsmouth mostly, and then we'd go up to Portland, Maine every once in a while for some shows. But I don't remember who we saw. It was like pop punk and indie when we went up that way, and I don't know why like we didn't see any like hardcore shows in like New Hampshire or Maine really. Maybe it's just because like the scene hadn't blown up yet, or we just hadn't heard about it. It's hard to know either or at that time.
Yeah, yeah. I was traveling all over Massachusetts and New Hampshire going to shows back then. I know Zoots in Maine in Portland was a big.
That's it. Yeah.
Place, and a lot of hardcore shows went there too, as well as Safe and Sound in Rochester, New Hampshire, put on a ton of hardcore shows.
Yeah, so we went there too, and we went down to Connecticut a bunch. So my friend Junior ended up putting shows on in Connecticut more than anywhere else. He barely put them on in Massachusetts. So like we did kind of like a U, like up to like upstate New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, like that kind of zone.
I feel like if you're in the area that we lived in, you kind of had to travel to go to shows because it was all over the place. It was, like you said, there was Maine. Sometimes Vermont would have shows. You'd have to travel all the way up to Burlington to go see a good show. Like you said, Connecticut, I went to a billion shows in Connecticut too. I was born in Haverhill and lived in Haverhill for a while, but then I moved to New Hampshire. And from then on, I've lived in New Hampshire since then.
Nice. Yeah, that was one of my favorite things, I think, though, was like, it was an adventure. Like you're getting in a car for a couple hours with some friends and you didn't know what was going to happen. Like you're going to get someplace and you're like, we don't know what we're going to eat. We don't know what bands are actually even going to show up. We don't know who we're going to know there. We might not know anyone. We might know everyone. We have no idea. And it was really, I loved it. I really loved that time. It was super fun.
Yeah, definitely. I try to tell people that haven't that are younger that back then there was so many shows, especially like Worcester, Massachusetts back then too.
Yeah.
Was like the space was like one of the greatest things ever back then in Worcester.
Yeah.
And also the espresso bar in Worcester was really, really fun too. So I don't think people really realize that every single, well, at least when I'm a little older, I'll be 50 in January, but it was like the channel and the rap for me. I was real young, and that was every Saturday and Sunday they would have hardcore matches.
Right.
And like when I was real young, and literally there was a show every single week, or 2 to 3 shows every single week from 15 years later. So until the scene kind of got a little violent, and then screamo kind of like broke through, and it started mellowing out after that.
Yeah, I mean you're totally right that there were weekends where we had to choose. We're like, well, like, are we going to go to this show or are we going to go to this show? Because we can't do both today. Like, it's just impossible. And then tomorrow, are we going to do this show or this show? Like, where do we want to go? How do we want to plan our route? Like, do we want to stay over somewhere and camp out or something like that? Like, what are we going to do? But there was just so much happening. and so many different types of bands to see.
Mm.
And so many different bands played different shows too. Like you could have like a pop punk band play with like a chugga chugga hardcore band. Like no problem. It was gonna happen. People were just okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. You would see like Hot Water Music play with Coalesce or something like
Yeah,
that.
all the time. Like that's a really good example.
And
Yeah.
it was amazing. Yeah, I love those kind of shows. I mean, Piebald played with every hard band. I mean,
Yeah.
there were really shows, especially in the Red Barn, where Converge didn't play with Piebald. I know they were friends, but I mean, that's like you were talking about. That's the mix up of bands and different genres that were kind of playing together in that same scene.
Yeah. It was wonderful. Like, cause you really got to meet every type of person too. Like indie kids, alternative kids, like goths, like everyone. Everyone was going to show up because it was something to do and it was something fun.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. What got you into playing guitar, or did you try something else before you started playing guitar?
Yeah, I think so. Like I lived with my first roommate in college was Jeff Salaney. So he played for Orchid, you know, on drums. But he played guitar before that. Not a lot of people know he's an amazing singer-songwriter.
Mm.
And he played in a band with my next door neighbor, who was a really good friend. He went to all the same art classes with me. This guy, Mark Hickson, who ended up playing in Tipping Canoe.
Oh, no.
So like we lived across the hall from each other. So all we did was talk about music. So we just started playing music together. Like we had this band called Plank, which was like a funny hardcore band, like a pirate hardcore band. We were just like, it was like a joke band. It was great.
Sure.
And then like, what else? Mark and I played in a couple bands together. Mark, Will, and I from like Orchid.
Yes.
We played in a couple bands together. It was just kind of like something fun to do. Like, because we didn't drink, we didn't do drugs. So what were we going to do if we didn't really feel like going to a party? It's like, well, we have a basement. We're living in Western Massachusetts. Every place has a basement. Let's just play music for 4 hours. So I essentially learned like on the job how to play music. Like, it's like you're in a band. You actually need to learn how to play guitar. And I was like, well, that's not really ever going to happen, but I can fake it.
So you pretty much like taught yourself or got like hints from a couple other people just how to.
Yeah. Oh, like Nate Langley, sorry. Nate Wicker was the drummer. Nate Langley, I watched him play a lot because I was like, okay, I think I can play something similar to him. He's always going to be a much, much better guitarist than me, but I could kind of mimic what he was doing and figure it out. Whereas like Will was playing too fast for me. I was like, I can't even see what his hands were doing. Like I can't mimic this. So like I really just watched people, like, because I was always at their practices, you know, like they're in my house. Like I'm gonna go down and watch for a minute, you know.
Now was Plank your very first band, or was there something before that?
I think Plank was the very, very first band. Yeah, it had to have been.
And that being said, is there anything out on the internet?
God, no. I mean, I'll text Mark or something, or I'll track him down and see if he knows. Maybe Jeff would know. God. To be honest, if anyone has it, like Will probably has a secret stash of like some demo we gave him, like, but I don't think so. It would have been a cassette, and it would have been like garbage sounding.
So, what was the first like band that you really like recorded with and kind of started playing shows out?
So I think it was either Arcana or Where the Sea Breaks Its Back. We had some like small recordings. Will might have those somewhere. He might actually have those because I think he recorded for us, if I remember correctly. And then Mars Colony was after that with like Jay from Orchid. He played guitar. Actually, Jay and Brad. I think Brad was in it. I don't remember. We played in so many bands together. I don't remember. But yeah, that had a recording as well. Croc had a recording, which was like, I think all 4 of us were playing bass, if I remember, which is stupid, but great. So those had recordings, then Wolves right after that. But like Where the Sea Breaks Its Back and Arcana probably had some like stuff, like demos out there somewhere. And then Wolves was like the next one that really had like shows consistently happening.
Yeah. Now you were playing shows though before Wolves though, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think we must have played with like Jerome's Dream and Orchid in my house, we moved all the furniture out and played in the living room. Then we played some shows at like Hampshire, UMass. I don't think anything at Smith. Maybe one at Holyoke. Um, yeah, yeah, that was probably it.
So how did Wolves get together? How did you guys all get together and decide, all right, let's make this band? And obviously it worked because it was kind of a small time that you guys were together, but you put out a bunch of stuff. The catalog is pretty extensive for that small amount of time. And you guys played a ton of shows. I think, like before I was saying when I was introducing you, I think I had seen Wolves 8 to 10 times in a 2 year period.
Yeah.
So
Which is kind of crazy too, because I was living mostly in New York at that time. So I was traveling back like every weekend to play shows and like to get ready for tour and stuff like that and to record. So I spent a ton of time traveling. But when we started, it was because Brad came back and I had been roadieing for Orchid like the whole time. I think I missed one tour with them. But once they asked me, I was just like, yeah, this is like the easiest job of my life. Like it's the greatest job to have. I'm not sure I would do it again, but like at that time it was like unbelievable. I got to see the country, I got to see Europe, and I just got to load in, load out, and sell records and watch an amazing show every night. Like literally those tours, best shows I've ever seen every single night. Insane.
yeah.
So good.
You must have seen amazing bands too play with, especially those tours in Europe and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What were kind of some of your best memories of that Orchid tour? And what were some of the bands that kind of blew you away, other than Orchid, obviously, because Orchid blows everybody away?
Yeah, so like four bands that I really loved, they were mostly the bands that we toured with. So like Lightning Bolt, Red Scare, Drone Stream, just because you kind of got to know them as people and see like what their motivation for music was. And that just amplifies everything. Like when you know the purpose of what someone's art is, it's just like it starts to like really seep in and then it blows you away. You're just like, holy crap, I get it. I get what you're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel Red Scare was super underrated as
I
well.
know.
Like Red,
They should have been one of the biggest bands, and I don't know why. And Orchid kept telling people that, like they wanted to switch, like spots and be like Red Scare needs to play
yeah,
last. They need to play last. They need to play last, and like they just couldn't really get them to do it all the time. So
yeah. I always say that to everybody. Oh my, Red Scare was so good. To this day, I still listen to Red Scare all the time. Just like I said, super underrated band. As well as I think Wolves was underrated because
thanks.
um, Wolves, everything that you guys put out was amazing to me. And like, I'm looking at pictures trying to find Wolves on the internet, and there's barely any. And I just like, I feel like it's a disservice to the scene that Wolves wasn't talked about more, or more people got, footage of it. Luckily,
Yeah.
I taped at least 7 sets of you guys.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Because like those would have disappeared because I literally don't keep anything. Like every couple of years, I just kind of clean my life out and like stuff that I don't need is just gone. It's like, what can I travel with? Because I want to keep moving different places and see the world still while we can. And it's like, I gotta reduce stuff. And unfortunately, the first things that are gonna go are like recordings of anything. Because like if it's not on my computer, I can't really carry any boxes around like that. I can't ship them. It's too expensive.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. I was in a band called High School Sweethearts. I literally don't have anything. We made shirts, we made EP, we made demos. I don't have any of it.
Yeah.
I don't have any of it.
It's like, why not give it away? If someone wants it, like, I'm going to give them the shirt off my back because they want it more than I need it. Like, take it. Like, I'm just wearing this because I don't have any clean clothes. Like, here's my shirt. Like,
Yeah.
that was kind of the thing I learned on tour with Orchid, too. It's like, whatever you can give away, if you have enough money, just do it.
Mm.
Because people are going to, like, down the road, they're going to give you a place to stay. And if they never do, if they can never afford you, you still made their day. You know, like, you still change their lives in some way. And it's, like, so important. Like, those tours really formed my moral compass and my ethics between Orchid and Wolves. Like, how we did things, why we did things, all informed how I live today. And I would never sacrifice that for anything. Like, I wouldn't do it again because it's too tiring. It's exhausting. but it was like a perfect way to transition me into how I wanted to live in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what was your fondest memory of that tour? Like maybe there was something crazy that happened at a show, or just give me one or two stories.
So my favorite one from one of the Orchid tours, and unfortunately I don't remember exactly which one. It may have been the one with Jerome's Dream. So Chased by Bees tour, I think it was.
Yep.
It was, they played a show at a club. It was packed. It was great. Everyone was having a good time. It got shut down a little early, if I remember correctly. And some kid was like, why don't you just come back to my apartment and we'll do another show? And we were just like, screw it. This was so much fun. Let's go. It was the wildest show I've ever seen. So I'm in one room and there's like a doorway into another, like 2 sliding door type of thing.
Yeah.
And I just see kids flying across the whole time, like in the air, like on the ceiling, like flying and doing flips and jumping up couches. And it was like the wildest thing. And people were like slamming into the desk, like the table with a record store, just because it was so fun. Everyone was just having the best time of their lives. And like you could see it on their faces, like they had never had more fun in their life. And how can you not love that?
What town was that in?
I don't remember. That was a problem. It was like, it was somewhere mid-tour, so probably in like Boise.
Yeah.
Like somewhere around there. And it was like a pick me up for all of us. Because we were getting tired too. You know, like you lose some energy, like you're eating crappy food, you're not sleeping well. You're just tired all the time. You're driving all night sometimes. And then you have one of those shows. And you're just like, I'm ready to do this for another month. Like, let's go.
Definitely. Now, did you have any of that, any of the physical stuff and stuff like that? Do you or you kind of purge stuff and moved to places that you wanted to go to? Is it hard for you to remember like some of the things unless somebody brings a memory back to you, like you see footage of a show or you see a Wolves shirt that you forgot about or something like that?
Yeah, it is. It is, to be honest. Because I'm the type of person who looks at moments in history as that. Like, they don't need to be in the future. They didn't even really need to be in the past. If like I have a feeling attached to it, that's great, and I'll take it. Like, it was formative for me. But I don't. Like, I'll see pictures and I'll be like, I don't remember that show at all. Like, so here's another thing that maybe is important. I had social anxiety, like, that was maybe the worst, and I didn't know, like, it was that bad until I talked to other people, and they were like, dude, that's crazy. Like, that's intense. So I would disassociate at shows. I wouldn't know. For Wolves shows, I wouldn't know where we were. I wouldn't know what we were doing. I would just be like, I'm looking at Andy, I'm looking at Brad, I'm looking at Eric. I'm like, if I know the song, we're good. Like, if I know, like, what the next song is, I'm fine. But I would look out, and it would just be blank. It would be nothing. So I had no idea, which is why I'm, like, most of the time turned around, because that was literally nothing for me. It was just, like, disassociation, complete disassociation. Not that that was bad, it was how I coped. But like, yeah, which is why, like, I'll see pictures, I'll be like, I didn't know that person was at that show. Like, they were standing right next to me.
Yeah, I dealt with that too when I was in bands. I kind of, especially I would set up shows and then afterwards I would kind of almost like not talk, you know what I mean? And regret those days because I'm a different person now. I worked on that because of my social anxiety. Back then, I kind of was just like, hey, good set. Like, here's some money. Like, and kind of walked away because I didn't know, like, my nervousness and my anxiety. I was just like, I kind of had to just get away, maybe go outside. Like I said, I feel like what you were feeling totally, and I understand it. I worked on it myself, especially doing these things because I wasn't a huge people person, and I felt like it was something positive for me to do, to talk to people that I admire musically and beyond, just to look at them face to face and have a great conversation and talk about stuff that means a lot to me and means a lot to a lot of people that kind of forgot about the scene then.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're doing such a great service, not just for the community, but for yourself. And like, this is the hard thing too, is like, you're natural at this. Even if like it never felt natural until maybe even recently, maybe it still doesn't. Like, you're really good at this, which is like, imagine if you had that superpower before. Who knows where you would be, but also like, well, look where you're at now. Like, this is probably the greatest spot to be at. So it's like a gift and a curse at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for those words too.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I was a huge greenhorn when I started. I, I was stuttering over my words. I was saying, times I listened to the early ones, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. And I've got, niche a little bit, but not. I'm still trying to work things out.
Yeah, it's always a learning process, right? Like, especially with anxiety, because it creeps up every once in a while, and you're like, where did that come from? Like, I thought I was through this. Like, this hasn't happened in like forever, and all of a sudden, yeah, like you're stuttering and you're like not making any sense. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
true,
yeah.
true, definitely. Getting back to Wolves, how did you guys actually get together and say, listen, let's get together? And who came up with the name also?
Great questions. I started the story and then sidetracked myself. Brad came back from going to school in Alabama, and like Orchid had kind of moved on a bit with Jeff because he was just more consistent, and like they said yes, like to him playing, so they got to keep with it. So Brad and I were just like, well, let's just write some songs together. So we just sat there and wrote like 40 songs together, just like within a few months. And I'm like, okay, well now we need a drummer and we need a bass player because like this is stupid. Like if we're gonna keep writing, like let's play in an actual band. So we recruited Andy from like what was the Last 40 Seconds, and then we had a different bass player who didn't quite work out personality wise. So we grabbed Eric because we all liked Eric. He's like a super sweet guy.
Yeah.
So like we just grabbed him and said, "Can you play?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll try." And he's good. Like he's a good bass player. So
yeah.
like we just started forming the band that way. And for the name, Jay and I were talking, I think in New York. I think it was at Jay's apartment, and he's like, "I'm gonna start this band called Panthers."
Mm.
It's like, you guys should start, your name should be Wolves. And I was like, actually, that's not a bad idea. And he's like, we're going to take it like in a little bit more rock direction. I was like, we're going to take it in like more hardcore screamo way. Yeah. And he's like, perfect. Kind of like two different bands, like satellite bands, talking about kind of the same stuff, like the same political motivations. So yeah, it was kind of like it was Jay.
Now, Wolf started. Was it 2001 that you guys started with the demo? Was it a cassette tape that you guys had? A demo cassette?
Yeah. I think we started in 2000 with just Brad and I, and then Andy came in, and then the demo was when Eric came. Like he came and learned all those songs on the demo within like a week, and then we recorded the demo. Yeah. So we had been going for a while, Brad and I, before that, but nothing like no shows really, or maybe one show. And no recordings up until then. And then I was living with Will, so of course we were gonna record. Like I helped him build that studio. So like,
oh really? No kidding.
Yeah. Eric and I from Jerome's Dream, we built that.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah, I've recorded in that building twice.
Yeah, it gets a little hot in the summer, but it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't think anybody like out there hasn't recorded with Will.
Yeah.
That's been in the surrounding states because, I don't, all the bands that I know and my friends and stuff like that, they've all recorded with Will.
Yeah.
Or they've gone down to God City and recorded.
It's the two, right? Yeah. It's like the two major people in hardcore in the area also record bands, and they're also really good at it. Like, yeah, they know what you want. Just go to them. Like, you're not going to go to some like rock dude. Like, that's what happened with Tipping Canoe. They went to a rock dude first. And it took them a while to get a recording that they liked. Because it was just, like, unbelievable sounding. Except they would do things that they were like, that's just not, like, hardcore. Like, we don't need the snare that loud. Or we don't need, like, the guitar to have that kind of tone. Like, and it was just, like, a push and pull. Because the guy was like, it's going to sound like trash. And, like, that's kind of the point. Like, it has to sound a little like trash.
That reminds me of High School Sweethearts we recorded with kind of like a rock engineer. He was almost like an intern for the. It was funny. This is like a Godsmack story. Godsmack was kind of like running this recording studio in Haverhill called River's Edge, and they had an intern there that was friends with the guitar player that was playing in High School Sweethearts. So they were like, "Oh, let's record here." You know what I mean? And then when we got there, the intern was like, "Excuse me." He's like, "You guys can use Godsmack's equipment if you want." And we're like, "Oh, that's cool." We're not. None of us were into Godsmack, but we're like, "Oh, that's cool." We recorded, and the engineer gave us all the, the music back, and we were like, "This is horrendous. Like, this sounds so bad. Like, all the levels were like wrong and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
after that, I was like, "We're going to Will," and I can all the guys in the band. I was like, "We're going to Will," and things worked out completely better, and we started getting better shows and stuff like that. But yeah, I was going through the same process with like a rock engineer type of place, and it's funny that we're playing in Godsmack's like amps and stuff like that.
Right, right. It's amazing. That's totally amazing.
It's crazy. Now, do you remember the first Wolves show that you guys played? Because I might have seen one of the first Wolves shows. Do you remember the show that you played with As the Sun Sets at the Crane Room in Tufts in Medford, Massachusetts? Before,
Oh man, yeah. Whoa, yeah. I don't think that was the first show though. I think our first show was at Hampshire College, if I remember correctly. It was like they had it every Saturday night. They
yeah,
were doing shows, so I think it was one of those shows, and we were like first,
yeah,
and it was a mess. If I remember, I mean, most shows were a mess because like that was kind of. I'm not a good guitarist, and I can barely sing. I can't do both at the same time. It's just not gonna happen. So like, yeah, that I'm sure like every show you saw was a total mess, but I'm sure I enjoyed it, and I hope the rest of the band did.
yes. That was the first time I saw you guys was that Sunset show, and I was like, "Whoa, who are these guys?" And then Brad, was in other bands as well, but and also Andy from
Yeah.
Seconds, because I had seen them in Haverhill at a place called Exit 24. I saw Wolves, but I was blown away. I was like, "Who is this band?" And I was a fan ever since, because every time you guys played, I was trying to go to the shows that you guys were playing.
Wow. Thanks. Wow, that's crazy. Like I didn't know like anyone even cared.
Oh no, like literally, me and Brian and my friend Tony,
Yeah.
the kid Ed, we would just go, like you said, friends get into a car, we'd drive to Connecticut, we'd drive to Rhode Island, we'd go anywhere that there was like hardcore shows. And Wolf, I think I saw you guys at least 8 to 10 times in a small 2002, 2003 thing. And also, my old band High School Sweethearts opened up a show that you guys played at
Yeah.
the Student Union building in Yukon. That
Yeah.
Brian,
Yeah. Exactly. That was Brian's show. Yeah.
which Brian set up the greatest shows always.
He's like, what a great dude too. Like I feel like all the people we're talking about right now were just like the nicest people, like really genuinely nice people who were there to give back to the community. They barely took anything, and they just gave back so much. It's like it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brian and Pete Zetlin
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the guys in hardcore that you
yeah, yeah.
see.
It's so true.
I think there's anybody nicer than those two guys,
Yeah,
honestly.
I agree. I agree. Like they are genuinely nice dudes, and like you could be like, that's got to be fake nice. It's like no, it's actually they're literally like that every time you talk to them. They are that nice.
Yes, definitely. Every time I talked to Pete, he was like a joy to talk to. So nice. A couple shows, like the last show that I set up, I got Sinaloa to play with Bravo fucking Bravo and Lot up in I forget who else had played that show. But that was the last show I set up in Kingston, New Hampshire, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll definitely play it." And I was like, "Well, it starts at like 12 noon," and they're all like, all the other bands are like, 12 noon," and he, yeah, no problem. Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's Pete.
yeah. And plus the Tin Can Fest that I always talk about,
Yeah,
like,
wonderful. Like, yeah, it's like so unbelievable for like a kid to put on such a big fest that meant so much to so many people. Like, it's yeah, Yeah, it was great. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
amazing.
always say it changed my life because I came from kind of like a metalcore background where, you know, I was moshing and doing stupid stuff and this and that. And I started listening to, as you know, people started calling it screamo after it was like
Right.
what was still hardcore. It was just emotional hardcore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, so when I saw the Tin Can Fest with Seisha and Portrait and Jerome's Dream, uh, Murdoch played that show. There was just like that changed the way I thought. I went to that show blown away. I saw all those bands and it just changed my mind completely. And I was like, all right, there's another avenue that I can go to with not getting punched in the face and
Right.
being sore from doing the same things. You know what I mean? It kind of there was a light bulb in the top of my head after that show, and then from then on in, I started going to just basically screamo shows because it was just the feeling, the vibe, the scene. Everybody had like pamphlets about like great things to read about that. It was just like a totally different family than like the metalcore. I'm not dissing metalcore by any means, but it just felt more comfortable for me, and it changed my mindset completely.
Yeah, same with me. Like the social political aspect of it. Like you're so right. You'd go, and it wouldn't be a flyer for another show. It'd be a flyer for like, what can we do in this country we're bombing? Like, how can we talk to politicians about stopping this? And then it'd be like, well, how can we feed the homeless in our community? Like, so, like obviously bringing cans of food was like such a common thing, and it's like I'd still pay full price because I was lucky enough to have like enough money saved from like working tons of jobs. So I was just like, well, I'll pay full price and I'm going to give some cans too because like these are all important things to me. I want the bands to get paid. I want the person putting on the show to get paid, and I want people to eat. And like that, those things stick with you. Like when you do those every weekend, they become a routine. So you do them more throughout your life after. Like a lot of even when I'm training people, like I have a scale right now from groceries out of your backyard garden to $200 an hour. It's that big because like I just want to help people who have like injuries and things like that, and that's 100% from those days in punk. I wouldn't even know that that was possible.
Yeah.
I would totally disregard it, but those days completely changed my life. So.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely taught me a lot of good values and traits growing up. And like I said, my mindset totally changed during those days. I always talk about screamo and hardcore. When was the first time you heard the word screamo? Because like we're older guys, and what did you think when you heard it? Because like I said, all the big screamo bands that are the godfathers of screamo, they weren't called screamo back then until they disbanded. So when did you first hear it, and what did you think about it?
So it was definitely much later on. It was like towards the tail end of Wolves, I think,
Yeah.
where I was just like, so when my friends, like my friend who did it just was that guy Junior, like he would label things like this is hardcore and this is emo, but like emo would be like Indian Summer, Get Up Kids,
Yes.
Promise Ring, Moss Icon, all the way. He would be even like, yeah, Fugazi is essentially emo. And then when it got a little bit more metal, he would just be like, that's hardcore. And I'd be like, okay, well, because he'd be like, I'd be like, well, what does this band sound like? And he'd be like, that's emo. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to like that. And he's like, yes, you will. So it was for me, just because of the kids I grew up with, always called emo until much, much later. And I think, I don't know who I had it was probably with Brad. We probably had a conversation being like, I wonder why the distinction. And then I think we came up with like, when Get Up Kids turned from like essentially pop punk to just like pop rock, and then like Promise Ring, same thing. We were just like, okay, that's why, because now everyone's saying that that's emo, so we need to now distinguish the two, because everyone, like, if we say like we're emo, they think we're gonna play like essentially 3-chord punk, and it's like, well, we're not doing that. Like that's not us. So I think we had to just be like, yeah, I guess we gotta embrace this.
Yeah. I was kind of the same way. It was hardcore and emo, and I was getting flack from my metalcore friends for actually liking emo because I was like a huge Pieball fan. Like I was one of the first that liked Pieball, and all those guys were like, "Oh, you like that stuff? No, that's weak. That's not hardcore." And I was like, "I love Pieball. I don't care what you I say, and then that turned me into, like you were saying, Casket Lottery, Reggie and Effect,
Yeah.
the early Get Up Kid stuff, Hot Water Music, Small Brown Bike, stuff like that. So it was like I liked that kind of music, and I liked the emo side too. They kind of fit together as a family, honestly, because I would just, like you said, the shows back then were filled with some of those bands and some really heavy bands, and that's the great thing about back then. And I kind of caught, like I said, kind of caught flack for actually kind of going over to the other side per se,
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky that like everyone who I knew was like more into emo than like the super heavy hardcore. Like we would go to those shows, of course. But it was, I think they were tired of like going to a show in Boston and having like the FSU kids come lock the doors and beat kids up with like hockey sticks. Like we didn't want to do like go to a shelter show and have that happen. Like we didn't want to do any of that anymore. It's just like it just wasn't fun at a certain point. And those kids were a little bit like too rigid on what they liked or what they didn't like. And we're like, you kind of like everything. Like I like hip hop too. Like, come on, man. Like you're gonna yell at me about that too? Like what? Like what's going on here?
I agree. I was a huge hip hop kid too. I was talking about running home with Ryan from Trap Them last week. Talking about running home and seeing Yo MTV Raps with Ed Lover and Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
At 4 o'clock, made sure that I was like got out of school
Right.
and definitely made it home when the episode started because I couldn't miss it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like, that was the life. Like,
Yeah.
It was a good time where like even MTV actually had some decent stuff on because that was kind of like, Yo MTV Raps was like revolutionary in that time because they weren't trying to play any of that. And then all of a sudden they were. And it's just like, whoa, this is as punk is. Like this is it. It was great.
Yeah, and I think those two genres, like hardcore and hip hop, are very similar with the politics and just the street level stuff that they bring. A lot of people are like, no, you can't like hip hop and hardcore. They're very similar in their structure wise, and I always try to bridge that gap between people that don't. They don't like hardcore, they don't like hip hop. I kind of try to bridge them together, but it's tough. It's a tough sell sometimes.
Tell them to listen to Dead Prez, and they'll be like, "Oh, I get it. This is revolutionary music. I get it."
Speaking of, like, I hate always bringing this up, but FSU. This is another reason why I kind of turned towards the emotional hardcore stuff. Is I had went to a Come and Correct 454 big block Blood for Blood show at the Rat, and jumped by FSU, and like 30 of them like just pummeled me, and I had to go to the hospital, stitches, I had broken ribs and stuff like that. I was lucky to make it out alive. Friends jumped in because there were so many of them and they were afraid, so I didn't really blame them at all because, like, listen, it was a scary scene. I barely got out of there alive. One of the bouncers was afraid to jump in, and finally when I got out of there, he pushed me into a side door and was like, "You got to get out of here." And I was like, "Oh, but my friend's like," and he's like, "Dude, they're waiting for you outside in the parking lot. They'll murder you." So I jumped on the T right away and went to I forget, Sullivan Square, and my girlfriend at the time picked me up and brought me to the Haverhill Hospital. Time to get stitched up and check up and stuff like that. But that being said, it still didn't stop me from going to hardcore shows. It was just like kind of like the wrong place at the time. I was, somebody hit me from behind. I did a little kick, and then I kicked the wrong person, and that was it. You know what I mean? That's kind of what got me out of that scene too, because I was just kind of growing up, and that kind of changed my mindset too. Even though I still kind of went and saw, I'd go back there and see Bloodlet and Dead Guy and stuff like that. It didn't stop me because I wasn't afraid to get beat up again. It was just kind of like a weird thing in the back of my mind where I was like, all right, this stuff is kind of getting a little out of control.
Yeah, like if it's just going to draw the type of people that are just going to jump someone, like they're in the pit too, like they're going to get hit and they're hitting people. Like, what, like, do they expect not to get hit? Like, that was the Rat was always such a tough place for me too, because like even when you go to like a street punk or a crust punk show, then all the skinheads would come out.
Yeah.
And they would just jump anyone for no reason. Like, so you're always like, well, is it FSU tonight or is it skinheads? And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that anymore. At a certain point, like, you're just standing in the back, you can't even see. Like, I'm a small dude, like, I'm 5'8", like, I can't see if everyone's like jumping around in front of me. And it's like, okay, I paid my money too. Like, at that time, like in high school, I didn't have a ton of money. So, like, I was just like, this feels like a waste. Like, my friends are getting punched. I'm getting punched for no reason. Like, there's no point. So,
like I would make the trek from New Hampshire. I remember one time I saw Accused from Seattle. I don't know if you know that band, The Accused. They love The Accused too, and they played with Brotherhood, straight edge band, and there was so many fights in there that like I wasn't near the pit. I was kind of near the band, and I got hit a bunch of times in the head. And then there was maybe 10 fights, and they just shut the show down. I think The Accused maybe got into maybe 6 songs, and they shut the whole show down because it was just melee back then at the Rat. The Rat was a crazy place. If anybody,
if people don't know, like you're pretty likely to get hit with a flying beer bottle. Like that's the type of place. Like for no reason. Like you could just be standing like in the corner as far away as possible, and someone's just like, look at that dude throw a bottle. Like it doesn't matter like how old you are. They'd be like a 40-year-old dude with like fucking like Liberty spikes, and he's throwing a beer bottle at like a 12-year-old. It's like, what is your problem, dude? Like you're just a dummy.
It was crazy. The channel was a lot better. I don't know if you ever went to the channel as a kid, but that was a lot better. It got violent later on. But in the beginning, it was amazing. Like those packed in so much back in the day, because that's where I saw like the youth crew like movement. I saw Youth of Today. I saw Judge. I saw Gorilla Biscuits. I saw all those bands.
That could be so much fun doing something like that, where like there's still that like brotherhood, like we're all in this together, brother sisterhood. Unfortunately, there weren't in Boston at least. There weren't a lot of people who are women, like or identifying as women. Like it's just unfortunately was a really big issue with the Boston scene. But like that could have been unbelievable if it just stayed that way. But I guess things never stay the same. Like so, what are we gonna do? Like we can't force it.
Yeah. True. It's very true. All right. Just getting back to Wolves. I sidebar and
I love it.
Art culture work was by far my favorite thing that you guys put out. Maybe because it might have been the first thing, and sometimes that first initial listen just grabs you. That being said, I still have it.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome.
I'll have it on CD. And I also wanted to ask, what would the track numbers, what started that? Just because of like, I kind of feel the same way, because in my bands, I always never wanted to make a title of a song. You know what I mean? There was lyrics about certain things, but the title always caught me off guard, and I didn't know what to do. So what was the thought process behind kind of numbering the tracks?
The big thing for that was like it started with Brad and I without lyrics at all, because we didn't know who was going to sing. We were going to try and get a singer, and we just kind of got lazy about it, and I kind of had to. So we would just label them as numbers in the beginning, because we're like, well, we don't have lyrics, we don't have a title, like what's the point? This is one. Like it's the first one we wrote, it's one. And then it turned into, when the lyrics came in, they were meant to be both extremely personal and really widespread, so everyone could have an idea. They were also meant to be touching on personal issues that could be interpreted as political issues, and vice versa. And I wanted that to happen. So I think I was talking to Brad one night, and I was just like, I don't want to solidify any idea by putting a name on this. If we put a name on it, people are just going to think it's this and it has to be about this. And it's not. It's a personal thing, whatever they connect with and however they interpret it, because it is going to be more like Dadaist and Surrealist and Fluxus influence. Like those are the big influences of my life. Even more than music, it was art, because I was an art major. So I was taking all of those ideas and jamming them in. And like, I just thought a title wouldn't make any sense. Not for what I wanted, which was a broader, bigger thing. I just wanted people to take it for themselves.
Yeah. and that went on for
Yeah.
your whole thing,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think we ended up titling one song and then never recording it. I think we did because I think we thought it was funny. Like we're gonna be those assholes who just title one song. We may have even titled like interludes rather than
Yeah,
because it was just like those like had personal things. They were direct for those people that like they wanted to get out. Like if it was a Weather Underground interlude, like they knew exactly what they were talking. They were talking about very like something very specific and very direct. And we weren't ever talking about anything as specific or as direct. It was just like a personal and social revolution. Like how do we get there? Like what do we do to get there?
yeah. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't the demo have song titles? There was 4 songs. What those had song titles, right?
We did, yeah. And then they got changed. So those actually got washed away as song titles because it just didn't feel right for us. It was one of those things where we didn't think we could even label them as a number. And like, this is the greatest thing about like Brad, Eric, and Andy. They put up with all my bullshit. Like, sorry to swear, but like I'm not easy to work with on those things because like I was in my thesis writing like all of these things, so I was thinking about all of these things at the same time, and I wanted it to be like every show was an art project, so it was never going to be the same, and that's got to be hard for them because like I'm never going to sing the same lyrics. That was the other thing too, is like I'm going to change the lyrics every single show
Yeah.
around the same idea. Like, did something inform me? Did like a person I was talking to inform me more about this thing that I was talking about, and now I have a better idea? Okay, well that's in the lyrics now. That's
Yeah.
coming in. So it was always this like amoeba growing and changing, and yeah, that's not easy to deal with. Like when people are like, just like sing the song.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. It can't
Well,
ever be the same.
did it take them off guard because you all of a sudden they heard you singing something different and kind of were like, oh, where am I? Like, oh,
Yeah. But they never really were like, you're an asshole. Like, they were always just like, okay,
yeah,
like, this is what you're doing. Like, you have all this artwork. Because I would also make art with the songs that never even got put out. It would just be like these pieces of art. And I'd be like, well, this is what the song's about, just as much as the lyrics, just as much as the music. It's about this too. And they always kind of got that, or at least put up with that. And for me, I always had to have it a certain way too. That was part of my anxiety. Was like it felt unsafe for it to not be the way I saw it, or to be heard in the way I wanted to be heard.
yeah.
So it was like, yeah. Again, I can't thank them enough, and they can still always call me an asshole if they think I'm an asshole.
Honestly,
Because I'm not easy to work with. I'm not easy.
now out of all the catalog that Wolves had, I mean, you guys had splits with Ampere and Transistor and Sinaloa. What was your favorite release that you guys put out in your mind? What was the favorite thing that you thought was the best Wolves that you put out?
I do think either the demo or the first album, because they felt so pure. We weren't trying to do anything. We weren't playing for a crowd yet. Like we had just written them because we loved writing them. We loved making this piece of art. And there was like a vision of what we could do. Like we were like, we're gonna play in a circle. We're gonna have everyone come in the circle, and we're gonna do all these things when we play live. And then like the realities of playing change, and then you start even tapering the music towards those realities. It's like we're gonna go tour Europe. Like we need to write songs so we can play every time, and they're gonna be like kind of fun and kind of predictable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what the last split with Transistor was. Like I love that album too as a completely different thing, but that's almost like not even a Wolves album in some ways. It's almost like I was listening to T-Rex at that time. I wasn't listening to any hardcore by then. It's like T-Rex, The Orb, like I was like, it's just like these random things.
Yeah.
And those did come in, but like we had to write songs that we could play, and
Yeah.
we had to do that tour. You know, like for a lot of different reasons, and some of them or all of them were really good. Like we owed the record label because like they were so great to us. Like
Yeah.
Coalition was so great What's that? Sorry.
Level Plane did put out that Transistor thing, right?
But yeah, we were also like we needed to play that European tour though for Coalition.
Oh, okay.
So like because they had put out so many records for us and we still hadn't gone over. So like yeah, but Level Plane put out that one, which I don't think they ever would have put out a record except Transistor. Transistor was so good. They were like, we'll put it out because they're on it. Because I don't think they liked us. I think they thought we were pretty bad, which is like it makes sense with like the type of bands they put out. Like,
What you think Level Plane didn't like you?
yeah, I don't think I think most people didn't like us we were because we were like so hard to pin down, and you weren't gonna get anything normal from us. Like, we might even forget the song because we haven't played it in like 2 years. We just like I wrote a song and I move on. Like I would literally be like, well, that's done. I never need to play it again except you do. You need to play it when you play live. You need to play it when you record. And it's like, no, I don't want it. I just want to write another song.
The thing that you put out as a band was the lowest split that was on Clean Plate, correct?
Yeah. So that was super fun. Just because we knew it was going to be with Cinderella, and like that was kind of just like a dream for us. We just really liked them. Like, like yeah, this is going to be awesome. So like this is going to be super fun to write this. And that was a weird song too. That was one of ours that we kind of piecemealed that together, if I remember correctly, where it wasn't like I wrote most. So a little like dive into it. Like Brad would write like 2/3 of a song, and I'd write like the last little bits, and then I write my parts over. Like we'd kind of jam it out and be like, well, what if we change this part to this? And then I would do the same thing. That one, I'm 90% sure that in number 13, I think we're just jamming in a practice where we, like Brad and I had some parts. And I was like, well, I think this part might fit with this. And he's like, yeah. And then I'll play this. And I was like, oh, well, this might work now too. And 13 was just like a jam. Like, I think Andy was just playing, and we were just like, oh, what if we just do this?
Oh, that's speaking of tour. What were some of the favorite tours that you did playing in Wolves?
I mean, so for both Wolves and Orchid, Europe has to be the best. It's just you're seeing different places. The travel is so much shorter. You're like, where are we going today? Germany. We're in Germany. They're like, yep, 2 hours away. We get to see this place we haven't seen. Like we get to see a whole city that we haven't seen. And they're going to give us food. I think Transistor said this. You show up, they give you a bag of money and food before you even play. And then you can go see the town. Like you can actually do things instead of just being like, with Will and I, we would be like I would sit up front with him a lot on the really long drives for Orchid, and like it was just, man, we would get there just on time because you'd be driving like Texas to Alabama. It's like there's some distance there. The U.S. is too big. It's too big.
Like it's like Florida too. You could play at the top of Florida, but then go all the way to the down. You're driving like quite a long time.
It's like 10 hours or something like that. It's a full day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So like for sure, both European tours with Wolves and Orchid were like the tours as an overall great. And people also were just like, I think in the US, sometimes people just go to shows, and sometimes like they're not even paying attention. But everywhere in Europe, people were definitely there to see the bands. And they were like right up front, involved, wanted to talk after, and you had time to talk after, and you could eat with them. Like you could do all this stuff that you couldn't do in the US. And it was just great. And it's just fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, did you see any bands when you were on tour, like in Europe, that you didn't know of that kind of way once you saw them play? And what were they?
Yeah, so surprisingly, I hadn't really heard of J.R. Ewing. And when we played with them, because I think we played, or not, it was with Orchid. I think it was like 4 or 6 shows or something like that with them. And I was just like, oh man, these guys are kind of like Refused in a really good way. Like, it's like, I'll take that because I'll never see Refused, which is unfortunate, but like,
Yeah,
this is great.
yeah, that's awesome. What about in the U.S.? Did you ever kind of just play like a random show, maybe in the Midwest, where like a band played and you were kind of like just blown away by it? Because a lot of times you don't see the opening bands. You're kind of loading in and loading out and doing stuff like that, talking to people and trying to set up your merch and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you don't necessarily see the opening bands. I was just wondering if there was any bands that kind of clicked with you that kind of blew you away in the States.
That was the unfortunate part for like, especially with Wolves tours. Like, I would get that like disassociation, so I would mostly stay outside because it was like sensory overload for me. And I'm sure there were some really great bands that I did see, and then probably just never had the opportunity to put out records. Because I do remember being like, "Damn, that band was good," and like being like, "Ah, yeah," but I don't know if we'll ever see anything from them. I don't know if I don't remember if it was like if it was Wolves or if it was Orchid that played with 12 Hour Clock. But I remember them blowing me away, being like, "Oh damn! Like these guys are kind of like Shotmaker. Like this
Yeah.
is nice. Like this is a nice change of pace, and they're pretty good at their instruments. Like that's also pretty nice. Like they're rocking this." Um, but then yeah, for Wolf stuff, it was probably like I was probably loading in because think I think Brad and I did most of the loading in and out. I just got so used to it with Orchid that it was. Oh no, it was Eric and I. Eric and I did all the loading in and out. I just got used to doing that. It was kind of like it helped me calm down because like I knew what I was doing. I was like I knew where we had to go with the stuff. Some physical exertion helps for me too. It helps calm my vagus nerves. So like all of that was kind of like my routine. And then I would try and eat something and drink some liquid, like to hydrate a little bit, and then see if I could like play a little guitar to warm up, and then hopefully catch a band or two. But I'd probably only usually catch one band after all of that. So
So when Wolves ended, obviously you guys are all on good terms and stuff like that. Was it
yeah,
kind of like had happened and people maybe it got kids or they were moving somewhere or something like that? Is that kind of why Wolves just kind of disbanded?
it was me. I was just like grumpy with playing music. Like I didn't really want to play music anymore. So it just kind of it lost that art aspect that made it so worthwhile to me. And even like on touring, like I lost that community aspect. Whereas like in Orchid, like as a roadie, I would load in, set up a table, and then it's just I'm talking to people. And I'm meeting like really great, awesome people who are genuinely kind people. And like you start to form a community. It kind of got lost with Wolves because I had that routine. So it's partly my fault. So I wouldn't be talking to as many people and I wouldn't be meeting anyone. And living in New York, I couldn't have a studio, so I couldn't make art. And like all of that stuff kind of chipped away. And then it kind of left me with the music and exhausting tours. And I was just like, I don't think this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like I want to just hang out in New York, my friends, play some basketball, and then go do other stuff. And then I kind of got roped into another band after traveling around a bit. I played in this band called Tiger City for a little bit. This guy Joel and Bill. Um, it was like a great disco type band. So we did the demo. Well, Joel came over and I was just writing like random Brian Eno type songs, and he's like, "You want to play in a band?" I was like, "No, I do not." And then he kept asking, and I was like, "Yeah, all right, this will be fun." So we recruited Bill, and then we just started writing songs, and it kind of reinvigorated me again for a little bit. And then we started playing shows, and I realized like they didn't come from the punk scene. So like how I wanted to do things was not how they wanted to do things, and we just went different ways. Because again, it was like it was going. They knew I was never going to be the guitarist they needed to play. I'm just not that good, and I knew they were never going to be like the avant-garde artist that I needed to be in another band with. Like, so yeah.
Now was that kind of what were you already doing your fitness training then, or did that come after
That came much, much later. So like when I lived in San Francisco, I worked at a skate shop just because I wanted to get back into skateboarding. Then I was like, I'm old. Like this hurts when I fall. I don't want to do that anymore. So I left that and worked like with some friends who were all like punk kids in this company where it's called On 24, where we did like background training for people in like live events. So we do coding and stuff like that. So I had to teach myself how to code. And yeah, that was great too, just because it paid a ton. And then I only worked 30 hours a week. So I was just like hanging out with friends in San Francisco. But I didn't like San Francisco too much. So what happened though was in San Francisco, I've been hit, I think 6 times cycling. So I had like 6 years cycling, no issues, never even really like a wipeout. And then within 3 years, I got hit 6 times and I separated my shoulder, broke my wrist, twisted a vertebrae. I think that was about it. Yeah, for that one. And that got me into training because like I had played sports my whole life. And I was just like, okay, my PT is not showing up for our PT sessions. I guess I just have to do it on my own, which is really frustrating. Like when you show up and you're waiting for 3 hours and they just decide to come out and tell you, yeah, they're not coming. And I'm like, come on, man. So I did it all myself. And then people just started asking me to train them. And then I was like, okay, well, when I got back to New York, I'll just get a training job. I worked at Equinox and I was like, I can't work at a corporate place like this. So I worked in another smaller gym. And again, I just get all the people with injuries, all the athletes, all the people with injuries, and all the people who have trauma, physical or emotional. So that's more what I'm moving into now is like somatic healing, movement to heal trauma.
Nice. That's like I wanted to ask you too. What made you move around so much? Where something that you just wanted to see different places and experience different, cultures and stuff like that. Like because East Coast and West Coast is different. I mean, it's plain and simple. It's different. Like, what made you move around, and do you think you're going to stick somewhere now?
So that's a great question. So I am not sticking anywhere now. I'm trying to split between New York. So I split last year between New York and Hawaii. This year, maybe either New York and Hawaii or New York and New Zealand. I'm trying to get into Auckland, but it's like they're just not letting anyone in right now until they get down to level 1 or 2. But it's for me right now. It's because I want to see more places. I like Auckland is a place I've always wanted to go to, so might as well. If I can do it now, like if the way work allows me to train people online, like do it. Like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
that's why I went to Hawaii because I've always wanted to live in Hawaii. So, and that was awesome. I met some really really great friends out there and had a really good time. But I had this plan, 6 months, and I stuck with it. I probably should have stayed because it's like. Those guys are still playing basketball right now. I'm like, it's like 70 degrees and it's perfect weather. It's like, it was so hot in New York this summer.
Oh.
But before that, it was girlfriends and ex-girlfriends being like, hey, I'm moving to this place. Do you want to come?
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure. And then like San Francisco was an ex-girlfriend. She's like, don't live in New York. Move to San Francisco. Like, okay. And then like I lived in San Diego for a little bit. For another ex-girlfriend, just because like they were such good friends. I'm like, why wouldn't I see this person that I may never be able to see again? So,
yeah. Now, was it tough for you to get acclimated to different places, or kind of it's a everyday thing for you just to blend in and just go from there?
I think it was easier back then than it is now because I'm so caught up in work right now, which is weird because I hated work all of my life until I got this job. But it's my job. I get to make it whatever I want. So I guess that's not that bad. But yeah, San Francisco was pretty easy. I lived in West Oakland for a bit and I would just travel into the city and see friends and then like work and travel and work. And then I moved into the city and then stayed with my ex. So like all of her friends, all of my friends. I had basketball friends. We played a bunch of times a week, like 2 or 3 times a week. So all those kids became friends, work friends. It was easier, but like working alone right now, like you just don't meet as many people. So I have all my old friends from New York. So we go play basketball like up where I used to live, and like I see other friends in the city. But it's like I don't put myself in any situation to meet new people.
Yeah.
So it's like who knows what Auckland's gonna be like. I might be a monk. I don't know. Although last time I did psychedelic, it told me I should do that. I'm like, you're a jerk, mushrooms. I hate you.
My brother-in-law lives in Australia.
Really? What part?
He lives towards Melbourne.
Okay, so yeah, my ex-girlfriend lived there, and she was trying to get me to go out there when she was out there for a minute. She loves it. Like,
yeah, loves it. I don't think he'll ever come back, honestly.
Wow.
I don't think he'll ever come back to the States. He loves it there so much. And he went by himself. He just went like, listen, like first he was living in Mexico, in the middle of Mexico by himself. Oof. And was like, I'm going to move to Australia. And he moved to Australia, and he's been there for 5 years straight by himself. Like he's now a teacher. He's like teaches I'm not sure if it's junior high or high school, but he's a teacher out there now. I don't think he'll ever come back, honestly.
Yeah. Like a lot of the people I met in Hawaii are Australian guys because they're the nicest people ever. They're just going to come up to you and be like, hey, you want to play basketball? You look like you can play. And just like so sweet, like the nicest people.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that you say Hawaii too, because my other brother, my brother-in-laws, they're twins, and one lived in Hawaii for 4 years, and the one I was talking about in Australia is in Australia. My brother-in-law Anthony came back to Hawaii, and now he lives here because he wanted to be closer to family and stuff like that. Those guys were moving all around too at a younger age, which hats off to them for taking the initiative to just be a young male. Just I'm gonna live on my own. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go out there. Maybe I know a couple friends, and I'm just gonna do it and live. And they did it, and I'm proud of those guys.
Yeah, that's amazing, especially at a young age. Like to do that is just to not know anyone is very difficult to get to a place because you're literally like everything's new. No one can show you anything. Like you're going to be eating at some terrible restaurants. You're going to like be shopping at the wrong grocery stores. It's just going to happen. You're going to live in the wrong neighborhood where there's like no buses or no trains, and you're just stuck there. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's true. It's crazy though. I can't believe it, and I'm proud of those guys. Speaking of basketball, I always have to ask you: you're from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Are you a Celtics fan?
Yes.
And you're living in New York, are you a Knicks fan?
No. And I can't even be a Nets fan anymore either. Like after Kyrie went there, I can't be a Nets fan. The guy's a bum. I hated him on the Celtics. I never wanted the Celtics to get him. I was super mad about it. All my friends like, he's so great. Like even diehard Celtics fans. So like, he's gonna make the team better. I was like, he never makes a team better. He doesn't do it. No. He's a bum. He's an unbelievable player. He's a bum though.
Yeah.
But here's something that I might make you a little jealous. The original Boston Garden, I played on that parquet.
Ooh.
And I shot a 3 and scored when I was like 8.
Really?
It took like 15 shots, but I got it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember going to the original Boston Garden all the time when tickets were super cheap back then.
Yeah, right?
Like really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so much fun. That was like one of my favorite things to do is to go to Celtics and Red Sox games. Actually, Bruins games were really fun too. Those are underrated, super fun.
Yeah, true. Especially back in the day when the Bruins were, you would always see, not that I'm advocating violence, but you would always see a brawl or a fight at a Bruins game. Back then, big bad Bruins at that time.
Yep, exactly. That was like, as a kid, it was like professional wrestling. Except like people get hurt in professional wrestling too. But
what do you think of the Celtics moves this year? I know we have to throw in some basketball.
Oh yeah, I love it. So I was actually happy when they got Chris Dunn, and then surprised that they traded him away because I still have high hopes for him as a defender. Like he's a decent passer and a great defender. Yeah. I was like, good, this is good. And then Schroeder came in, and I was like a super fan of Schroeder when he was just coming into the league. Yeah. And then he just like I don't know what went wrong, but he never looked like he cared enough. So like now that we got him, I'm like, okay, well that's going to be a little bit of an issue because he's playing for a contract. This is going to be like another Terry Rozier issue where like he thinks he's the best player out there.
Yeah.
Is not going to pass. He's just going to shoot a ton of terrible shots.
True.
So I'm worried about that. I hope Marcus Smart starts as point guard and we just run him. What is Jaylen Brown's injury projection right now? Is he better or is he still? He has a knee injury, right? Like,
Yeah. They're still talking about him playing right off the bat. I haven't heard anything about him like being held back.
Yeah.
Like I think the prediction top 5. I think they were talking Marcus Smart, point guard, Schroeder for shooting guard, Jaylen Brown, Tatum at power forward, and Robert Williams starting. I think
that's not super bad. I would try and find another replacement for Schroeder and let him run the second team and just like have him score as much as he wants. You know, like, let him do that. But that's actually not bad. I think this is another like hot take, but I think Jaylen Brown's the best player on the team. I think he's better than Tatum, to be honest. I think Tatum has a ceiling of like a really, really good Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
The problem with Carmelo is he doesn't actually make your team better. Like he gets the points, but he doesn't make your team better because he wastes a lot of clock and he takes a lot of tough shots.
Yeah.
Whereas Jaylen Brown gets the ball moving. He started to take more questionable shots with Kyrie there because Kyrie taught them to take terrible shots, like get yours kind of thing. I think he's going to revert back to being an unbelievable defender, a better pick and roll player than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
And a much better scorer this year. So I think he's going to be the dude. And then Robert Williams, Time Lord is awesome.
Oh, I love him.
I just need him to stay healthy.
That's what I was just going to say. If he can stay healthy, I mean, I think we have a lot of things to work out. Obviously, I think there's 16 players right now that they have, and obviously they have to dump one of the contracts, which it may be Jabari Parker. I don't know.
Yeah, might as well. You know, like let him go. He's not going to have much playing time. So
I personally, I'm not a big Grant Williams fan at all. I just like, I feel like they might, in my mind, I think they should cut him and keep Jabari, just for the sake of scoring. And he's just, I don't know. Grant Williams just does not do it for me. Bruno Fernando, I think, has some potential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was sad at first, and then they started making some moves, and I was like, well, you know, like even Sam Hauser from the summer league, he was shooting, you know, lights out. I was like, whoa, they might want to keep this guy. So
we get some young guys that can shoot, and it's like you don't want to give up on the young guys that can shoot because I mean that's your future, and there's like cheap contracts in the future.
Yeah.
And we still have Josh Richardson, right? They haven't got rid of him. He could have a bounce back year. Yeah. I mean, we don't know. He could be a good player again because he was a good player and people forgot about it because he was so bad on Dallas. Like he was garbage. And then horrible on the 76ers too. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like the Hernan Gomez like pickup though.
Yeah.
You know, even though like you said we kind of lost some stuff. I like it. I don't know. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a little bit of hope. Obviously, the East has mixed around a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be tough. But I feel now that Brad is gone and the fresh coach in there, I feel things might get back to Celtics basketball where it's not so much isolation ball because last year it was just complete isolation ball. It
brutal to watch.
It was like give it to Tatum or give it to Brown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you would see Pritchard shooting from way behind, like he thought he was Steph Curry.
Exactly.
Marcus Smart. Like those were painful to watch. So hopefully it gets back to team basketball and they can, you know, work on that. It was tough to watch.
Yeah. Brad even admitted that like he lost the locker room at a certain point. They weren't listening to him and they still liked him. It sounds like they still all respected him, but like you can't blame it all on Kyrie, but like there was when he came to the team, it just went downhill in terms of like actual running plays. Yeah. They just stopped running plays. It's really, and then Kemba's not that kind of leader. Kemba will score when you need him to score.
Yeah.
But like, he's not going to be like, we got to run this play. You know, he never did that at UConn. Like, why would he do it? Like, UConn, the play was give the ball to Kemba. He's going to score.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Tatum working out lately, but he's a beast. I saw his arms that he went kind of skinny arms. He's got some rocks for biceps now. I was like, whoa, he's bulking up for this season.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. He's still going to be like an all-NBA player. And I think he'll have a shot at an MVP at some point in his career. I still just think. But this is also me being like the idiot who always thought Scottie Pippen was better than Michael Jordan, you know, because he did more for the team. I'm like that. I'm like, team player. Like,
yeah.
Like, do the dirty work that you need to do. Like, guard the best player. Jordan would when someone called him out. But Pippen mostly guarded all the tough players. Yeah. Brown's going to do the same thing. He's going to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Or they throw Marcus, which
he's a dog.
Like this and this with Marcus, just because of his wild shots and I think it was a good thing to sign him for that contract because now, like trade wise, they will get something. You know what I mean? If they trade him. So it was like people are like, "Oh my God, you gave him such a huge contract. What are you going to do?" Like this and that. Well, you can trade that though. So that's a smart thing than just letting him go for nothing.
Yeah.
And so
I agree. It's with that contract was like underrated how sneaky good it was because it was one of those things where it's not so high that teams look at it and be like, he's definitely never going to live up to this. Yeah. It's like, so say he plays well, but just doesn't fit in with the scheme to the Celtics. He's totally worth that contract for another team. Say he doesn't play well. His potential is still high enough for that contract to trade to another team. And if he does play well, he's worth more than that contract for the Celtics, which is like, it was a really smart contract.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of people were dissing it, but I thought it was definitely a good.
Yeah. You're right.
I don't want to take too much of your time, so I usually do a rapid fire.
Sure.
Every interview I usually throw some rapid fire. First, though, I want to show I still have the flyer that my band and you guys aren't.
Oh my God!
The assistant is on. You replace the assistant.
That's crazy.
All right, I'll start off. My number one question always: favorite New England punk hardcore band for you all time?
Oh my God! So this is going to be hard because it seems a little unfair, but it literally was early Piebald, but not the full length. Anything before the full length, like demo included, I so good. Like I love that stuff. Sinaloa is also really high up there. God, I mean, there's so many, but it's just like there were so many good bands out of that area. Like if you're counting all of New England.
All of New England, like Rhode Island, Connecticut.
Yeah, because I mean, then even like you've got to put like Lightning Bolt and stuff like that. Anton Boardman, like there's so many. I mean, Caden was really good. Converge was really good. Like Jesus, Orchid, Tipping. I'm gonna go underrated band, and I think they need more hype. Tipping Canoe. I'm gonna say Tipping Canoe is too many good shows. Such good guys.
Yeah.
Underrated album.
Super underrated.
It's like still, I was listening to like Wicker Man, and I'm like, that is one of the most complicated, best songs I've ever heard from a band that I saw write that song in my basement. Like, just like how detail-oriented they were with that. And the other thing, too, is like Nate Wicca on drums. He would get so bored at playing because he was so good that he would be doing things and washing them out. So he would hit a bell and wash it out just because he was bored. Yeah, he was just like, I've played this too many times. And like wash it with another tone. Like that's how smart these guys were. Like they're geniuses. Like
great.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that's awesome. My second question: what was the first punk hardcore show you attended?
Oh God, shit, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. So it was probably a pop punk show, and it was probably like either Doc Hopper or Sinkhole up at the Elvis Room in Portsmouth. That was probably it, because I probably got roped into it by some of my friends, like when I was like 14. It's just like, you're coming. And I was like, I don't even know these bands. They're like, we don't care.
But this is kind of a side question. What was your first like hardcore show? Like hardcore?
God, so that would have been, no, it wasn't, like, I oddly went to like a grip show in like Connecticut. That was early on, but I don't think that was it. It had to have been a Converge show at the Red Barn. It had to.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I can't think of anything else that it would have been. Yeah, it had to have been.
Those were some great shows too.
God, yeah.
At Red Barn, you couldn't go wrong going to the Red Barn. Like, literally. And then Pete goes, "Oh, I set that show up. I had a flyer." And like, that's the first show I set up. And I'm like, I'm looking at the lineup. I'm like, what? That was your first show you set up? Like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Right? Like, young kids setting up these shows that were just like, how did they do it? They just didn't care. They were just like, well, I want to. So I'm going to. And it was like, there was no thought like, well, I've got to like let someone else do it. It's like, no. If you can do it, do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Unbelievable. My third question. All-time favorite punk hardcore show you played?
Oh my God. I think maybe the last Wolf show. Just because it was like, the understanding was there. Like, it hit me, it hit the rest of the band. Like, I was just like, oh man, this is it. Like, we're not gonna do this again. And that's okay. But like, let's make this fun. Like, let's do this. Like, let's put something into this that, like, whatever we have in reserves, like, we're dumping it all out. It's happening. And it was, I think that show, because it just meant a lot to me. It was like a retrospective of everything. So. Yeah.
But now, where was that? Do you remember where it was?
That was in Boston. I think Brian sang all the songs for us. I'm pretty sure we recruited him to sing every single song.
Yeah.
And did Orchid play that one? I don't think they did. I think we played their last show, but I don't think they played ours. Because that would have made sense time-wise. Yeah.
Okay. My next question. All-time favorite punk hardcore show you attended that you watched and didn't play the show, that you kind of just went and saw a band. What was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show?
So this is going to be a hard one because this was early on for me, and I'm probably confusing a bunch of bands. But it was like a show that my friend Junior, again, like, this kid was just like so influential because he just didn't care. He's just going to do it. I think it was like Avail, Converge, maybe like one of the first Sleepy Time Trio shows, because it was supposed to be what was the Maximilian Colby, and they had broken up because their member died. Wasn't it their drummer or something died?
Oh yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like they switched over to to Sleepy Time Trio, and then maybe like a band that was like a Shotmaker precursor. So like, what a weird show.
Yeah.
I may be confusing two other shows with this one, but I'm pretty sure that was it. And I was just like, this is the greatest show ever, because every band's completely different and everyone loves what everyone's doing. Like, all the bands watched each other, and I was like, whoa, that's cool too. Like, these are big bands. Like, Converge watching Avail, it's like, why would they do that? But like, Avail was huge too. They were just huge in a different way. Yeah,
definitely. Oh, that's awesome. Do you remember what that was in?
I think that was somewhere in Connecticut, if I remember. I don't remember where, though, because most of his shows were in Connecticut. I don't know why. He just knew people down there, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm a huge movie guy. Some people aren't. Some people are. I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
John Wick 2. Which I will be watching John Wick 3 maybe later tonight, because why not?
Why not?
Oh, no, actually, I did see over the weekend, too, the new Marvel movie. What is the name of that? Why am I forgetting the name? Shang-Chi? Is that the new one? It's the new, mostly Asian actor. Shang-Chi, yeah. Shang-Chi, yeah. That was pretty good. I didn't like it as much as other people did. I don't like the guy who does the fight choreography for it.
Yeah.
Although I think he did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, if I remember, or maybe the
Really?
producer did, which I loved.
Yeah.
But I hate The Matrix, like in so many different ways, like from theory to the acting to how it looks, like all of it. I hate it. It's my least favorite movie. That's my least favorite movie. That and Avatar. But the fight scenes I wasn't that impressed with, and everyone was like it's so good, it's so good. And I was like, it was all right. It was just all right.
Yeah.
I've seen too many like Hong Kong cinema movies to be like, this isn't really that good. If you know those movies, this isn't very good.
Yeah. I love Asian movies, especially. I'm a huge they make the best revenge movies of all time. So.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've ever seen this movie called it's the Witch Subversion. It's on Netflix, but it's that movie is amazing. It's a little slow burn. It's real slow until halfway, and then after halfway hits, it's just a speed race of action.
So the Indian Summer of movies. It's all or nothing. What are you saying? What are you doing? This is too much.
My next question: favorite all-time horror movie for you?
So I don't have one because they scare the crap out of me. Like as an adult, I will have nightmares. So I don't think I have one. I think maybe one that still sticks with me, and it's not even a good horror movie, but it's like the Final Destination movies. For some reason, still stick with me. Like, because like I've almost been hit by cars a bunch of times, like before that, and I was like, it's gonna come back and get me, and it did.
It definitely gets you thinking, especially the log truck where the logs fall off the truck. I'm always, every time I go by a log truck, I'm like, oh no, I gotta get by this guy.
Yeah, like anytime like you're ever near a roller coaster, it's like something's gonna fly off and kill me.
True, I definitely it's in the back of your mind after you watch it.
Yeah.
My next question, obviously you're a hip hop fan.
Yeah.
What hip hop have you been listening to, if you've been listening to any?
So not much recently. Let me think. The last thing I was listening to. It was most likely a revisit of something older. Oddly, it might have been Jay-Z's Blueprint, because it's still one of my favorite. Like in terms of production, in terms of flow, I think it was one of my favorites. Like content-wise, it's like whatever. I don't. Yeah. It's not really talking about anything, but it's still good. I don't know, because I haven't been listening to music. Like literally the last two things I listened to was like Curtis Mayfield and Stevie Wonder, and like I hadn't really been listening to anything in like a year. I didn't listen to any music in Hawaii the whole time. 6 months, no music. I don't know why. I just listen to podcasts all the time. And books on tape. Like an old band now.
No, you're not listening to Phil Collins, because you mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, that's like a reference for Will. So late night shows, when we would do an overnight drive, I would sit up with Will because everyone else needed to play, and I didn't. I could be kind of out of it the next day. So I'm like, I'll take one. Like, I'll be out. Will and I will do this. We'll do the whole overnight, because we got to get someplace far. We don't have time. And as soon as everyone was asleep, we'd look back and be like, Phil Collins. We'd put on Phil Collins for like 2 hours.
And like I said, I'm a Phil Collins fan. Honestly, I just made my kids listen to Easy Lover the other day. Like, they're like, Dad, what is this? I'm like, oh, don't worry, it's good stuff. Like,
it's amazing. He's an underrated songwriter. Like he wrote like so many pop songs that are still complicated, interesting songs. Like people don't give him credit for that. But
and talking about Genesis, I like Peter Gabriel. I like, but when Phil Collins joined, I was all into Genesis once. So, so a lot of people will disagree with me. You know what I mean? They got some Peter Gabriel fans. They got Phil Collins fans, but
So I'm there with you on that. Peter Gabriel even said something about his time with Genesis, which was like he was kind of a megalomaniac for that band, and it had to be his way.
yeah,
And I think what he was saying was he was trying to make inaccessible music in like under the disguise of it being pop. But like if you listen to it, it'd be hard to listen to.
yeah,
And he did that. Like he was successful. I like it. It's hard to listen to.
yeah. I'm in total agreement with that.
Yeah.
I got two more questions for you.
Sure.
My next question: favorite Wolf song to play live for you?
Oh, it was 13.
13.
Yeah, it just felt right. Like it always felt like it had a groove to it that we would all lock into. Like it was the one that felt like everyone could get on board every time. Like we were just there with it, there in the moment, which was nice. And things would wash away because we never really knew how long it was going to be played.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, it was almost trance-like. And then all of a sudden it would just go. And we would just be like, oh, here it is. Like that trance just gets released. And it's like, I always described it as like, if you're in the woods and all of a sudden the path clears and you open into a field of sunlight, that's what it always felt like to me. It was like, whoa, what's happening? Like, just wonder.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was ever going to happen.
That was one of my favorite songs too. Like 13, 14, 18, obviously 9 and 1 were always like some of my favorites too.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was just very, very fortunate to get to tape like a lot of that and get to see you guys and really enjoy Wolves. And I talk about Wolves all the time with my friends and stuff like that. You know, I still have the simulation, transparency, alienation pin up in my.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
I'll send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
I still have the pin, and it's like rusty on the back, but I still have it.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
Yeah. So it was just like I said, it was a great thing. And also, my last question kind of is the Wolves Ampere Punkestra that you guys did. Yeah. I filmed 2 times. One was in Connecticut, and the other time was at Tufts in the basement there. Tell me a little bit about that. And I know Brad, I heard him talking to my buddy Ron in an interview. Shout out to Ron and Brad, that Brad was like, I don't know, there was so many people playing that it probably didn't sound good. It sounded good. From me standing back and listening, it sounded fucking great. Excuse my French, but it sounded great. And on film, it actually sounds good too. So can you just talk about that and the memories?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure that was all Will. I think it was his idea. I think he talked to Brad first, and Brad was just like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then like they talked to us, and I was like, what an awesome idea. Like, what a really interesting, cool way of doing things. Like, of course I'm going to do it. Like, it's everything I like about punk. It's like playing with a bunch of people you really like. It's playing songs that like aren't yours. They're playing songs that are yours.
Yeah.
We're all doing this together. It's gonna be a little hectic. It's gonna be fun. We have no idea how fast Andy's gonna play. Like, yeah, because when he gets amped, he plays really fast. Yeah. And with like their stuff, it was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna play this. This is hard stuff to play for me. It's not stuff like the chord progressions just weren't in my toolbox. Let's say. Yeah. So, like we just broke it down, played it slow in practice. And we just started picking up the pace, and started picking up the pace, and it just became really fun. It just became a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Now, was it only 2 shows that you guys did that, or was
just those 2 shows? Just those 2, and we maybe had like 5 practices or something like that to learn everyone's songs. But we had heard all the songs enough times that we were like, we have an idea, like we know when to switch. We just might not know the exact notes because like. Or the exact chords, really, because Will's chords are so unique a lot of the times. And I think Will helped me change some of the chords too, which like, because I have a broken finger, like some of them I can't do because like my finger's bent the other way. Like it's not going to go that way. So like we would change it a little bit and he and I would kind of like break it down together outside of practice and be like, okay, yeah, this will work. This is kind of like, this is complementary. It will make sense. Yeah. So yeah, that was it. Oh man, that was what a great idea. I mean, but Will's a genius, so like,
Yeah.
it's a great idea.
Will's a beast. I mean, he's still I don't think he'll ever stop playing, punk and hardcore. He is a beast. And on top of recording and doing anything else that he's doing, I love Will. I talked to him a while ago. I talked to Jay Green.
Yeah.
I talked to everybody that I love and admire, and that's why I was so psyched to talk to you too, because I think, like I said, Wills doesn't get enough credit. And,
Thanks.
and like anybody that listens to any of the catalog that you guys put out is gonna love what they're listening to. At least for me, and anybody that can, I'll throw out this guy Matt always says, you can come at me if you don't think Wolves is good, because they're good. So I just want to thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. It was great talking to you about basketball and Phil Collins and and stuff like that, and especially fitness too. One last question is, do you have a burning feeling that you want to get back into like a heavy band right now, or is that kind of just past and gone for you?
So I've actually thought about it a bunch, fairly recently, because I keep walking past music stores and I'm like, oh man, if they had a Hiwatt, I would go in and buy it. Like, I wouldn't be able to help myself. And I'd be like, well, then now I have to start a band. Like, I just have to. You can't waste an amp like that. It's not sitting in a room. That's stupid. So, like, I have actually thought about it. It's just so hard with equipment. Like, if someone asked me in New York, which a lot of people gave up their studio spaces because it just got so hard with COVID. But I would say, yeah, like I would go jam with some people and see what we could write, like maybe do like a weekend recording or something. But it would have to be like, I'd have to be in a place for long enough that I could actually have a guitar and an amp, like things that I really like, not just any guitar and any amp. I'd have to be like, no, like I need an SG. I really, if I'm going to get another amp, I'm going to get a Hiwatt or an Orange again, like, or a Sound City again. Like any of those, I'll take one of those. But like, yeah. But it does, every once in a while, I'm like, oh, that is really fun. It's really fun to feel the sound coming out of the amp. To hear the drums and feel the kick. Like if you stand in front of a kick, someone's hitting hard, it thumps your chest. It's great. It's great.
The feeling is great. Oh, well, I mean, people that are older, they're not doing the touring thing, but they're actually just creating. It could be something up your alley too. If you get with a couple of people and you're not doing like, hey, I'm taking a 2-week tour straight through, every city and, a show night. I feel like a lot of older people are kind of just, doing that kind of thing, like almost like projects, and then doing a one here, one there show. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm going to play New York here. My next show is in a month from now, maybe in Connecticut or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's much more up my alley, or like at this point in my life. And like, since I'm here till December, maybe I'll ask Jeff Salaney if he wants to play a little bit, and we'll start a quick band. I saw him like a couple weeks ago, and I've been meaning to call him, but I just haven't. But yeah, maybe I will. I think you might have inspired me.
Well, please let me know for sure.
I'll let you know.
I'll definitely push it for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know.
All right, Tim. I don't want to keep you too long. I thank you so much. I almost kept you 2 hours. Please stay.
Dude, so much fun. So much fun. Like, this was great. And I got to shout out my dudes from Docs Till Death, too, because they harass me with Red Hot Chili Peppers all the time. Those dudes are awesome. Everyone listen to their podcast. Unbelievable. Yeah,
definitely. I always promote those guys. Great guys. Great guys. Yeah. Thank you so much. And please stay in touch. Stay safe. And listen, any info that you have, that especially if you're playing in a new band, let me know, and I'll push it like crazy.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
No problem. Have a great night, my friend.
You too. All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.